This year sees the celebration of the anniversary of the greatest revolution in transport since man first rode upon a horse's back. 150 years ago, in 1830, a group of people built the first proper railway line in the world across 30 miles of Lancashire between Liverpool and Manchester. It's now a comparatively insignificant detail in the vast system which it fathered, but this railway remains virtually unchanged and in daily use. It is perhaps the foremost industrial monument in this country. Not that it was the first railway in the world or even the first to use steam locomotives, but it was the first to combine all the essential elements of a modern railway. It carried both passengers and freight, it provided a public service under the authority of an Act of Parliament, and it was worked from the start solely by steam engines. Called at the time the Grand British Experimental Railway, it turned a scattered collection of ideas, hopes and theories into a practical and efficient transport system which changed the world into the one we live in today.
Ah, I didn't see that. It's me, Thomas Edward, also known as T. I was sat in the Victorian front room like the old days, but it's minus the gas lamps. We've got full electric. That's the only difference, really. But I've just got this old scrapbook out of the cameraman's scrapbook, actually, of when he was young. I think we were 14 when you did all this, and we're just looking here at Rocket 150 tickets. What you'll see there, there's one there, and then there's one here, and then these are the tickets for actually getting to Rocket 150. There's two of them there. And now it says on here, look, it's Stand J, Block 4, Row E, and Seat 74, and the other tickets for Seat 73. Now, we're actually going to go to Rainhill today and look at where Rocket 150 was filmed. But Rocket 150 was 150 years of the Rainhill Trials. What was at Rainhill? And it's on the Liverpool to Manchester line. And they had these original trials because they needed a reliable and long distance locomotive to link the two cities up. This is what was important about the line, because this line was linking up two big cities, where before had just been little lines, but not quite an important railway, so to speak. So they had these trials, and they brought many different locos to the trial, and I think it was like an 8-day trial, and you had to run a minimum of 10 miles an hour, and it had to pull stuff and all sorts of little tests they had to do. So they had Rocket, they had Novelty, they had Sunpry, Perseverance, and they had Cycleped. Cycleped was it wasn't even a loco, it was two horses on top with no big nose bag troughs. They walked and it moved, but it didn't even get to the actual testing. It was chucked out at the first hurdle. But the people, so they had the trials, and Rocket won because it could run the longest and at a good constant speed. All the rest weren't up to standard, and Rocket won it. Now Rocket, if you look at how Rocket's laid out with its pistons and all its gear, it's actually the blueprint of locomotives going from that point 150 years onwards, you know. And all the locos you see were sort of built in that print, but obviously tweaked and changed as they went along. But it is Rocket. A lot of engines you can look at and go, that's where it all came from. That was the first big stage where a steam engine looked like a steam engine, and it didn't look like, it didn't have vertical boilers and stuff put on it, where it actually, Rocket did look like an engine with a funnel and, you know, a boiler, an oblong boiler, and the pistons, and some decent running gear. So 150 years later, so that was 1829, and then it opened in 1830, the Liverpool-Manchester line, and then in 1980, May 1980, they did the Rocket 150, what was like the celebration of the line and the trials and everything, and they had lots of different steam, diesel, electric, all going up and down, and he had lots of grandstands and what these tickets are for, where the cameraman went. So today I'm going to take you back to where Rocket 150 was done, and we're going to look with old photos and footage of where it was and try and see what we can find with TE. So I'll see you next time at Rainhill in the middle of a field. Right, so we've come up from Rainhill station down here, and I've got a picture. What I can't really show you because all the bushes have grown up. That's a bit further down here on this side of the tracks, and there's a nice DMU there, and that's the bridge over the end of the station. This side is over there, and this side is the side I'm sat on, and it's down there behind these trees. That's so that was the station. All these walkways here, where people walked from the station up here to the viewing galleries and sort of stands. What was behind here, in this trees and this fence, was all along here. There's path, and there's a path on the other side as well. Now on the other, so this, you can't really replicate this photo because it's all overgrown, and there's a few industrial estates as well in the way, and that bridge is different to the station. But this one is the best for this area. This is the best photo to use. It's a class 56 towing, coupled up to an APT, and so this big pallet place behind is actually those houses. But the key feature to note is this white house here, this old farmhouse with a bit of outbuilding on the side. That's still there today, and it's that white house there what's been slightly extended and a bit modernised, and it's actually quite, as I'd call it, Lancastrian, but we actually aren't in Lancashire, and sort of near Liverpool. So it's got a big garage next to it, and a nice shiny gravel driveway, and that's that house there. And those fences there where people stood is on the other side. You climb over a stile, what we did, what I'll show you. So that's sort of, and these are all the stands what people sitting on watching the 150th anniversary of Rainhill Trials, and this is the path that comes down from the station here, and then there's people on the other side what would have come down that road on the back, or it might have been a lane then, and there's bandstanders people on the other side of there, on the other side of where the electric lines are. So I've got this other picture here that I forgot I had. Now this is a bit more emptier day because they did a 3-day sort of anniversary. It was 24th, 25th and 26th of May 1980. And this is sort of another picture where you can see that White House, and the new house is there, what the old pallet sort of depot. One is just a modern day unit coming past, but that's original sort of what they had units. What they weren't part like the anniversary. They were shuttles for people to come to here to watch. So it's in West Midlands livery. Is it like a class? Is it like a 106 or something? And that's looking over there. What you can't. It's like there's chimneys in the background over there. Well, obviously might have been knocked down, or you just can't see them today because there's so many shrubs and foliage in the way. But there is, but you can see the two pylons over there. They're actually those two pylons here in the photo. So that's the only thing you can sort of find where you're standing and what the background was in 1980 and now in 2023. 10, what we are, 10, 20, 30, 40, 40 plus years, 43 years later. We're going to walk up the playing field now. Now I'd say these playing fields were here in 1980 as well. You can see them in the back of the photos, but I'll show you a bit more when we get on the other side. But I'm going to walk up towards the footbridge for the footpath, and because there's a picture here, I want to show you what we can recreate. Class 323, a microwave. Right, so I've walked up the playing field a bit more, and there's another picture of the shuttle here. I'll just show you briefly down there. And it's here, where I'm stood, is where the stands were, and like the school chairs, and it's all made of scaffolding. There's some BR manager there, and there's some police officers on the bridge, on the corner of the bridge. Obviously it's a brand new bridge now because they've had to make them higher for the overheads. You know, this is when they didn't have overheads on this line. So in the last 40 years they've added overheads to this line, so they've had to change the bridge. And it's a bit narrower as well, the new bridge, where this is quite wide, because it's obviously it could get a third line in. You know, there's two lines there, but it's probably made where you could get another line in. So, and behind is the collieries up there, and that's the big spoil hill, and actually we'll show that after, and it's got houses on it now, but we'll show that in more detail on the other side. But I'm going to go up now and cross the bridge onto the other side, because that big power line, big pylon, plays a key part in all the original photos from 1980 of the 150th anniversary of Rainhill. But you've got to go on the other side to recreate those pictures, and it has that in the background, and it has those houses there in the background, and in front of those houses is a big long line of Leyland Nationals in that sort of that overgrown field. But those houses are there in the behind the photos, and so is this playing field. It's not a lot's changed really, apart from the overheads and this bridge and the bridge at the station. But we'll go over to the other side and walk along a bit and show you. There's a good picture of a Class 55 Deltic coming past, and it's got that pylon in the background, so we're going to try and recreate that. So this here, we're in the playing fields now. I think you're not technically meant to get in these playing fields from the other side, because that footpath bridge goes, the footpath carries on up that field. But this is an unofficial Rainhill little cut through. What they've actually cut off, they've been down with either a grinder or a little, I think it's a grinder, I can't really tell on the cut how clean the cut is. Oh yeah, it looks like someone's cut it. And actually this bit of fence here is actually in the river to make, I want to show you, we'll come down here. It's in the river to make a bridge, so you can walk across the little culvert onto the other side. What's here? Now this culvert is actually on the original photos. When I was showing that picture of that shuttle, that DMU, you can see the culvert in the background, and which is a bit slippy today, there's been a bit of rain. That down there is the part of the fence, what should be up there, what isn't anymore, and it's down there. And they've liberated a few fence posts as well, and a ballard. So you get down and you crawl across there and get up. It's all lots of cut throughs down there. So we've come to the Manchester side of the bridge, and that's the big pylon. What we're going to go, and we're actually going to walk along those shrubbery there. You have to get over the culvert again. There's actually quite an interesting bridge on this side, I'll show you. And we're going to go up there and recreate. All those new houses up there, all along there, is where the big spoil hill was from Bold Colliery. And Bold Colliery is where they had all the sidings for when they did the 150th anniversary of Rainhill. and they put everything at sidings up there, so the replica Rocket and APT and the industrial engines and 55 Deltics, and I think they had a 50, all sorts of stuff, a Western, were all from the sidings up there. But now, as you can see, the big spoil heap is all gone, and it's houses. They flattened it pretty much. Whereas still a lot of places, even up round our way, you can still see where collieries and mines have been. But here they've totally got rid of it and reused it for housing development, made a bit of money out of it. So we're going to go down here, and it's I don't think it's the most desirable place to be on an evening. It's full of graffiti everywhere, and down there's a sofa, and when me and the cameraman turned up, that fire pit next to it was still burning. It had smoke coming off it. So I think it'd been burning from last night, and it only just gone out at 2 PM in the afternoon. They don't know the idea of a bin round here, I'll put it that way. So we'll get down and show you a few more photos. So I just noticed something on this picture, what we were showing you on the other side of the bridge. Is these railings here, what's over the top of the culvert. Now these railings, I didn't think they'd be still here, but in the actual fact 43 years later they are still here, and they're very rusty and slightly bent, and there's a few poles missing out of it, but they're pretty much the original fence over the top of the culvert from 1980 when they did the anniversary. And obviously now they've got the new fence to stop scallywags getting over onto the railway, and you know, it's a bit of scrote protection, I think the idea is. But back then it was just, you just had a barbed wire fence. What's here, you actually can see it, and these are still the barbed wire fence. Well, they're not barbed wire, but the wire fence posts, and like the bits where you can tighten them up to get the slack out of them. And then over the culvert they had that little fence. What's still here? It's pretty fascinating, and that's that there. And there's for the wire fence is the post there. That's pretty good, isn't it? Find that. So the bridge may not be here, but the fences are still here all these years later. So this is the interesting bridge I was telling you about. It's two, I don't know, I think they're metal sleepers. I don't think they're concrete sleepers. I think they're metal sleepers what someone's turned into a bridge. So we're going to use them. I'll use them now, get up there and show you the best photos. Wow, there you go, that's a modern traction of today, a bit of EMUs. And that's a traction of the anniversary, 150 years in 1980, May 1980, of a Western going that way towards the station, and that's the pylon in the background. What's still there, and it still looks like the original. You can line it up with all the rivets on it, but it's the original one. That's pretty amazing. Yeah, it's been standing there another 43 years. And will it be standing, no, is it 2030? Will be 200 years of the Rainhill Trials. And will that be still standing then in another 7 years when the cameraman be 64, and the cameraman actually came, as we said at the very, very beginning of this video, in 1980 when he was 14 years old. So a long, long time ago, in 1980. So there you go, they'll be still there in another 7 years. It's been pretty good. They've probably been there since the 70s, so they've probably been there 50 years. It's pretty amazing. The only difference with that pylon there, seeing the the input of the overheads put out on the line, and probably a few new tracks gone down and new fences and a new bridge. That's, you know, it's outlived everything what's being replaced around here, and all the little trees and saplings that have grown up in the last 40 odd years as well, and that's still standing. If we didn't have that, it'd be very hard to get it right. The only thing we can go against and use is those houses over there. All those houses are in the back of these photos. That house, you know, you can actually weigh up which houses were on the photos here, but obviously there's a few trees grown up in front now, so it's a bit harder to see. And a few windows have changed on them. But that's the only other thing to really replicate. And over there, I don't know if you can see it actually, over there, I think Fiddler's Ferry's over there. And I don't know if I've got any photos with me today what show Fiddler's Ferry in the background or not. But it's over there. You can see it today, it's very clear today, very clear March day. Oh, I nearly forgot, I've got another photo. Now, I've just been keeping my photos today in Grange now. I've got a Class 55015 here with some white cabs on it, what I think would be park cabs. They always sort of painted the cabs white, towing some like freight liner wagons, you know, some containers. What's actually the wrong, technically incorrect for the haulage for a 55 because it's high geared, 2 engines, but it's very high geared for passenger and speed. It's not necessarily like Clarkson say, it's not speed and power. It's not made for torque. So they did do a bit of 55022 about 10 years ago, did a bit of freight haulage in Scotland. I think it was some tankers, if I remember rightly, got sort of rented out, and it was actually the wrong engine to even rent out because it was too high geared, it wouldn't do it. It would do it, but it wouldn't do it very well. You need a 37 or my favourite, a Class 40, what are low geared and got a bit of torque and a bit of oomph for them, what are not made for speed for pulling freight. So it's technically sort of incorrect really using that at the 150, you know, should add a couple of Mark 1s behind it. So we're going to walk up there now and use those houses, that old farm and Pilkington glass factory, if we can see them in the photos we've got today, but we'll do a load of B-roll if we haven't and find photos to replicate. They're the only landmarks, what, obviously not the houses are not landmarks, used to say, because that's where the spoil heap was, but the farm and the glass factory definitely was. So we're going to try and replicate a picture to see if they were in the original photos when people took photos in 1980 of the anniversary of a standard class tank. It's actually 7 Valley, I've been behind that. And there was this big spoil in the background, and there's these little posts here, and I'm just thinking one of these wood posts are original, or they've been replaced from the originals. Obviously on the other side they look like concrete posts, but they look like wood on this side, so they could be original, those little posts. It's quite surprising how much he's left on either side of the railway 40 years later. That hasn't been ripped up. There was a lot, it was the biggest, well, there was more steam really than diesel on this 150th trial, because obviously steam started the revolution, so steam was more important. So it was the biggest gathering of steam since the last days of steam in 1968. Like Lostock Hall sheds up near Leyland had the biggest fleet of steam on the last day of 1968 of the full working day. I've done a video on that, you can see that on my channel. And so this was the biggest gathering, but May in 1980 was quite warm, and he had a ban on steam on the main network because it set fire to everything. So the diesels, I think it was a couple of duffs, spoons, Class 47s to the normal folk. They pulled them down, and I think the steam engines were in light steam, so they were sort of simmering away, and they got pulled from all over the country. You know, steam came right down bottom of the country, top of the country, east, west, you know, the whole shebang, and they got pulled down here to Bold Colliery. I've just got to digress for a minute. Right, I've digressed. And they pulled all the steam down to here, Bold Colliery up there, and its sidings, but there was a little engine called Maud, and it came all the way right up in the Highlands of Scotland, right at the top of Scotland, this little tank engine. and it made its way down, but someone they tried to pull it with a diesel, and there was a big man with a big beard, probably a ginger beard and a hat. He'd probably done this engine up and, you know, made it all shiny and refurbished it. Told them to F off pretty much, and say, no, if you put an engine on, we're going home. We're not doing all this work to not come down on full steam. So he told him to F off, and he made his way down through Scotland, over the Settle and Carlisle, and down all the back lines to get down to Bold Colliery. So one little engine did, you know, it had full steam all the way down, chuffing through Settle and Carlisle and all through the ups and downs of the Highlands to get down to here. So they've actually, because the original plan was everything was going to come here in steam, but in the end it didn't, because it was too dry and everything was, you know, it would have gone up in flames if they got steam running. So, but this little engine did. So that was a little engine what could, and it was all down to a big hairy man with a probably big ginger beard, and told the BR to F off because he was going home, you know, if he couldn't do it in steam. So there you go. That's a bit of TE factual interlude, that was, and that's a picture what's obviously took over there, from over there somewhere on the stands. Standard class tank, and this big spoiled here what's gone, what's obviously on those houses there. You sort of can see sort of the beginning of it where it was, because the houses are actually a lot higher than almost where we are here, even though we're high up, but they're sort of high up. They sort of chopped the top of it off and used it and deposited it elsewhere. So we walked a bit further up, and I've got this picture of a Black 5 here with a bit of mixed freight on it. It's even got a narrow gauge engine sat on a well wagon on the back, and a cattle box van, and two guards vans, and something else in the middle. And you should really do this from the other side of the line, but these fences are right pain to film and recreate stuff. So we're going to do it from here, because it's a bit better. So this Black 5 here is obviously taken from over there. And when I was talking down there, we're trying using that farm up there and the glass factory in the background for a bit of reference to try and recreate. There's actually something else that's still here, what I've only just realised walking up. So in this photo of this Black 5 here, there's some old school pylons, no, telegraph poles here, that one there. That one there is still there. You can't see the other one, but that one there is up there. I think it's slightly newer, but it could be still the same wood one with different fitting and fixings on. Yeah, and but it might be a new pole altogether. But it's still the same path as the original one from this photo 40 plus years later. And obviously that's a bit further up there. So this Black 5's took a bit further down there, in between these two, these four posts that hold the overheads up. It's sort of in the middle there. But apart from that, there's nothing to really tell you. Any of this was here, and the big spoil pile for Bold Colliery is those new houses there, what look maybe 20 years old, 25 years old now. They probably be even newer than that. They're probably only about 15 years old. They're quite posh, really. And Bold Colliery, when I said earlier on, they had everything up in the sidings up there, so they could, they sort of went up there to sort of stable them, so to speak. And everyone went up there to take photos, and they were more interested in Flying Scotsman, Leander and Sir Nigel Gresley and everything else what was there, what was in the parade. But what was interesting at Bold Colliery, it's actually a TE video all on its own, is Bold Colliery all the way up into the 1980s had its own steam shunter, still working, not on the main line, but in its own sidings around Bold Colliery, a little tank engine called Robert. And actually that got cleaned up for the day to be part of the parade, but when it wasn't in the parade, it'd go back to work shunting. I think it had a sister loco as well.
But I think the one that has attracted most attention today is the little working engine Robert. It works here at Bold Colliery every day of its life, and it looks as if it stepped straight off the pages of a children's book.
It had a sister loco called Whiston as well. That probably took part in the parade, unless that worked and the Robert did the parade, and that sort of took duties over. And I think the Whiston loco was no relation to David Whiston, but that's only an in-house joke between us. I think Tilly up north will appreciate that joke. And the Whiston engine is actually, you can see it today at Foxfield Railway. I've done a video on Foxfield Railway about 6 months ago about the fence to keep the people out for vandals. You can see that video on my channel. So yeah, that was the interesting thing. It had Bold Colliery had working steam all the way up into the 80s, so it could take part in this. It was lucky enough that it could have a bit of action and be in front of cameras, but really people weren't interested in it when they should have been interested in it, because it was still the last working steam in the country, in the northwest, where everyone were taking pictures of Flying Scotsmen, where you can take pictures of Flying Scotsmen anywhere. It's everywhere on the network. But the little tank engine wasn't. I'm back. 2 days later in full high vis. The whole shebang with TE, and it's a lot colder and a lot wetter than 2 days ago. But we've come back because we went home and we missed an important thing. We were on this crossing 2 days ago, and we went back and looked and went, we need to go back because there's a few details we missed. So this is the crossing, and it plays a big part in the Rocket 150, because this is actually where they started the Rocket 150, like the opening day on the Saturday, the 24th of May 1980. And the key things what we went home and looked and went, there's a crossing, and then we were like, there's little bits at crossing we've missed. Apparently up here, but we can't find it. We've had a dig around at bush. In that sort of next to that black and white yellow pole just to the left of it was a flagpole with a Union Jack on. Now there is a pole in there what's a fence pole, but I don't think that's it. I reckon if you had time team and dug around a bit, you probably could find the old bits of crumbling bottom of the flag post in there somewhere. And then the other sort of part where the cameraman stood his stands, and there's stands, and then there was a gap in the middle for the crossing, what's still here today. And also stood on here when they did the opening ceremony on the 24th of May 1980. A special train came in to sort of open it, and Sir Peter Parker got off it, and Norman Fowler, who's not related to the tractor engine Fowlers. He's just a normal man, and I think he was Transport Secretary. And they got off, and they do all the things where they talk about what they're doing and everything, and it's to celebrate this, that, the Rocket 150 and the Rainhill Trials. And then they over here behind us, they had the Welsh Guards and all the red uniforms and the big hats, and or wigs, whatever you call them. And they had the band here, but like Sir Peter Parker was over there on the other side. And obviously you've got to imagine both sides of the line had lots of grandstands with lots of people on both sides, what you can't really imagine today, because all these fences and all the new overheads around. And he got a bit of showbiz and a bit of TE japery. He got his big bell out to open it and rang his big bell, ding, and then the band was playing, and then it was sort of open, and then it could start. The fun could start from there. Round here, I think, was it Stand G was round here, maybe a bit up there was Stand G. But the cameraman who's holding the camera now came on the 26th, it was the last day, and he was in Stand J, so that was even way down there. It could have been near the spoil pile, what doesn't exist anymore. That's where those houses are. So I'm going to have a mooch down there today to have a look, what we didn't do the other day. And then we wanted to come back because we wanted to film this and then show you what it was like on the opening day and see how different it was, because that's the main thing to see, apart from the photos we've got. We're also going to walk around and we want to get on the other side, because there's a public footpath on the other side as well, to look through that side and recreate the opening day. Right, so we're coming to the other side, over at Bridge, That's where you'd walk up from the Rainhill station down there, and the fairground would be near those houses over there. And there's a picture on Flickr of there's a unit coming through, and apart from the bridge, what's obviously a new bridge now, and that little culvert, there's another thing what's on the picture. There's a big stone block with little threaded bars coming up the top of it, and I think we found it. It's behind there, and it's still there. They've just boxed it in with a fence. I don't know what would have been on it originally, but it was there in 1980 before they had the overheads on this line. So it was maybe it had a signal on it or something, a bit of a ground frame. I don't really know what it was really, but it's there anyway. Now I can touch it. It's about 4 foot long, and it's got on top. It's got these big threaded bars on top. Right, so we're on the other side and we're coming up to the pylon where that Class 55 Deltic with that pylon's in the background. You know, when we pointed from the other side, this is the pylon. We're going to walk past it all the way up to those black and yellow posts up there, and that's where the crossing is. So we've come round up the field to the other side of the crossing. Now before, we were over there before, looking at the flagpole where the Welsh Guards would be, and the band. And but this is where Sir Peter Parker and Norman Fowler got off the train, you know, to do his opening up, was on this side, and it sort of filmed looking at him here, sort of where we are. Obviously no fence here, none of these yellow poles to stop you getting large loads over to not electrocute yourself on the, well, foul the overhead lines. And you know, today we've managed to, I think we've managed to replicate with pictures and what we can see in 2023, March 2023, what it would have looked like in 1980. So we've done it with all different pictures, and we've tried to get as many locations as possible to show you that it was here on this ground. So the cameraman came here when he was 14, and if it happened again in 7 years' time, he'd be 64, you know, a long time later. I don't know if they could possibly do it, because all the overheads and all the fences and all the shenanigans around it with like all over there's all trees growing up. No, they'd have to do a complete redevelopment and probably use all the fields and probably a bit further back. And you've got all these, there's so many health, and even though these were here in 1980, there's so many box ticking health and safety things now, but they probably wouldn't allow it, because there's this pylon here, there's overheads. It probably wouldn't really happen now, but I think they'll try and do something somewhere, because it'd be 200 years. It'd be silly not to, wouldn't they? So hopefully they might see this thing and go, oh, we need to get on with that and start getting a bit of, getting Greg down here, do a bit of brush cutting and getting it ready, you see. And oh, and I just got to remember, there's also no sidings down at Bold Colliery. Bold Colliery doesn't exist anymore, so they couldn't really store the engines in it. You know, they'd have to either go into Liverpool, store them, or up to Manchester to store them, and then run them past and shut all this line to do it. But if you've enjoyed today's video, I should say, actually I should say next week tune in at 8 PM for one of the oldest steam sheds in Greater Manchester. So stay tuned for that. And to stay tuned for that, make sure you subscribe and like and comment below. And I'm going to leave Sir Peter Parker and Norman Fowler. I think Norman Fowler had the bell, and he's going to do my favourite thing of click that big bell. Ding!
Sir Peter Parker, the chairman of British Rail, headed the official party with his wife, followed by Norman Fowler, the Minister of Transport, here to perform the opening ceremony with his wife, and then all the other guests alighted, and everyone was agog.
Chairman, I'm delighted to be associated with the celebrations today and to be able to declare open this 150th anniversary of the Liverpool and Manchester Railway. When the cavalcade comes past, government ministers and MPs are advised very much to keep off the track on this occasion.
A reference to the death of poor William Huskisson in 1830.
But Sir Peter, I would like now to open this cavalcade in the traditional way that I gather railways have always been opened, and that's with a bell which has got a history which I think the commentator will tell you about at a short space of time. But with this bell, I will now open this cavalcade.
The practice of opening a railway with a bell is in fact a Scottish custom, but it so happens that the present general manager of London Midland region used to work in Scotland, and when he left they gave him that bell as a present. And to be fair, we also have the band of the Irish Guards.
So if you want to know more on Rainhill and the trials and everything, come here to Rainhill Library, and there's a Mark 1 coach on the back that came from Carlisle actually, in TE land, and you go in there and it's just a whole museum of photos, history and video. There's a bit of video going on in there, it's really good. And there's a visitors book, and if you look on the 3rd of March you'll see TE's signature in the visitors book. So there you go, come here if you want to know even more than what TE's told you today.
But I think the one that has attracted most attention today is the little working engine Robert. It works here at Bold Colliery every day of its life, and it looks as if it stepped straight off the pages of a children's book.